Alright, I recently did a reaction to the truth about slavery on my channel not too long ago, and a lot of you guys are telling me in the comments below that that is not the good representation of slavery. It's missing out a couple of details, and along the lines of, you know, slavery wasn't just something invented by white people, right? It's been going on for a long time, and people of all different races have been getting involved in that. At least that's, I feel like that's the general gist of what you guys are saying. So you guys told me to check out Thomas Sowell, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. This is what they don't teach you about colonization. I think there's a series that I might have seen a playlist or something, Thomas Sowell's stuff. I haven't seen the videos, but I saw a playlist. So if you guys want to check out some more stuff about this, because you guys know me on that channel, I've got a very curious mind. I love to figure out what things are like going on before I was born, and I just love learning, man. I love wisdom. And you know, you guys always teach me a lot of things, and you guys have led me here today, so this is exactly what I'm gonna do. So guys, look, if you want to listen to some more, it's just a bonus content from me, consider checking out the Patreon. I'm doing 4 episodes of Married to Children, so if any of you guys are interested in that, then consider checking that out. Of course, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications, and like the video, and let me know what other videos you guys want to check out if you guys love seeing this kind of content from me. But guys, look, with that being said, let's get straight into this video. Let's go!
Thomas Sowell is one of the greatest philosophers of our time, yet he isn't even mentioned among the 100 most influential African Americans in Ebony magazine.
Wow.
To help more people learn about him, please consider liking this video and subscribing. To get useful materials about Dr. Thomas Sowell, please visit the website. Thank you, and let's begin.
Here's your website. Okay, just curious, just let me know. Go check out this original video, 1.3 million views 3 years ago. Okay, all right. It's gonna be an interesting one. Let's go. He's a philosopher.
Please visit the website.
I love philosophy.
Thank you, and let's begin.
I love logic.
Well, you link wealth creation to the acquisition of skills and the employment of skills in a disciplined way, and also in a frugal way.
Oh, that's a question. Would you link you know, wealth to, I guess, the ability to acquire some of these skills? Okay, this is interesting.
Disciplined way, and also in a frugal way in terms of lifestyles. But others would attribute the generation of poverty, the obverse of wealth, to colonialism, imperialism, exploitation, economic exploitation. How do you handle those arguments?
Okay. Well, some of those words I don't know what they mean. Colonialism, imperialism. Okay, let me do a quick Google search. Because why not? Why not? Let me do a quick Google search. What is colonial? I don't know how to spell it. Oops, wrong one. The policy practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country. Occupying it with settlers. Okay, the policy or practice of acquiring full or partial control over another country. So when you go and colonize, okay, that's when you colonize. Okay, so you just said it in a way that just made me not really recognize it. Okay, this is a deep question off the jump, man.
To colonialism, imperialism, exploitation.
And then imperialism, let's do a quick Google search. Imperialism, what is imperialism? Because I'm the type of person that if I don't know what it means, I'll just say, man, like I'm not gonna pretend like I know what it means. A policy of extending a country's power and influence through colonialization, use of military force or other means. Okay, so this is like, you know, the propagation of that colonization. Okay, imperialism, policy of extending a country's power. Okay, I'm up to speed, I think.
Poverty, the obverse of wealth, to colonialism, imperialism, exploitation, economic exploitation. How do you handle those arguments?
Well, insofar as those arguments are meant seriously, you can simply look at evidence. Insofar as they're purely political arguments, they're saying what people want to hear. Obviously, there are people who would much rather hear that than to hear the other, because if you think that's the problem, then there's not only a quicker solution, but there's a more emotionally and morally satisfying solution. Namely, you fight against the exploiters and so on. If you look at the third world, for example, those parts of the third world where the imperialist powers have come in have typically been the more advanced parts of it. They've been the most prosperous ones. Even if they weren't prosperous before they got there, they became the more prosperous parts. Those parts of the third world that the imperialists have never touched are, almost without exception, the very poorest places on this earth.
Okay.
So you don't find any explanation for poverty and colonialism? The reverse, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. That when the Romans
Wait. That's very interesting. So he's. I think what he's saying here is, if I'm not misunderstood, is these areas, these third world countries. I'm guessing the ones that are like, you know, are not as economically developed and all these things that we have in the West, all this stuff. These countries that have been colonized, and all these things that have been taken over by these external powers and imperial. What's the word he's again? Sorry. And imperialism and all that. Yeah. That is contributed to the wealth that the countries have now in terms of them progressing, and the ones that haven't been so far are probably some of the poorest countries and stuff like that, or areas, which is very interesting. So he's saying is he saying it's having a positive impact, which is I guess not what the mainstream view is. Well, I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm just interested. Okay, all right.
So you don't find any explanation for poverty and colonialism? The reverse, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. That when the Romans, for example, invaded the British Isles, they conquered the southern part of Britain, but they never conquered Scotland. And for centuries thereafter, perhaps for 1,000 years thereafter, Scotland was far behind England in economic and cultural development, because England had the advantage of tying into the whole Roman civilization, and everything that it had created, to some extent, percolated down through the British.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting, you know, because even me being a Brit, as you guys know by the accent, maybe some of you guys don't know by the accent. I don't know. That is true. I mean, look, we talk about London, one of the most economically developed cities, in the globe, around the globe. And the Romans conquered it, but they didn't conquer Scotland. And I know, you know, Scotland didn't really have areas like you could really. I mean, maybe nowadays it's a little bit better, but it's like compared to London and England especially, it's like they're a bit behind, which is interesting. I hear what he's saying though. I hear it. I can't argue with facts and statistics. You know, I do maths. I can't argue with facts and statistics. That's what it looks like.
And everything that it had created, to some extent, percolated down through the British. That doesn't mean the British were happy with the Romans being there.
Right.
You know, 1,000 years later, Churchill could say, we owe London to Rome. But that's 1,000 years later, and Churchill didn't have to go through what those people went through. So I'm not saying this is good for the people who were there. But in the longer run, of course, England became what it was because the Romans came. And Scotland finally developed only after England conquered Scotland. And then the culture that developed in England then could spread into Scotland as well.
Well, does this suggest then that in addressing poverty in today's world, there ought to be a latter-day reincarnation of imperialism or colonialism in some form?
That's a question.
No, because I think politically
he's basically saying, look, so, you know, if we want to tackle some of these things now, do we just need to now start calling out these places, do like in a modern-day version to help with poverty and stuff like that? Interesting question.
Addressing poverty in today's world, there ought to be a latter-day reincarnation of imperialism or colonialism.
These are so many big words, you know. These are so many big words. Luckily for me, I understand most of them because I'm curious mind. I'm always, if I don't know a word, I'm always searching it. So it's like, I feel like I can understand what they're saying. I remember way back, like a year or two ago, I'd be like, what's going on here? But this is a bit of a sign there. I kind of understand what they're saying here. That's crazy. Vocabulary is important, guys. I'm telling you, man.
In today's world, there ought to be a latter-day reincarnation of imperialism or colonialism in some form.
No, because I think politically it's impossible.
Right. Okay.
I hear from various parts of some independent nations, they say that they were better off under colonialism and so on. That isn't in the cards. The people who are in the imperialist nations don't want to take on that.
But some would say that there is the functional equivalent of that in the operation of the multinational corporation today. Do you see that, the operation of the multinational corporation, as help or hindrance to the generation of wealth?
Multinational corporation is a corporation that exists in many different countries. So let's say like a clothing brand, like a Nike or something like that. Is he asking about that and is whether that helps poverty? So Thomas basically said, nah, he doesn't think that this modern day version of colonization would work nowadays because people don't want it. So what about the industries that are like, or the companies that are doing kind of that? I think that's what
operation of the multinational corporation today. Do you see that, the operation of the multinational corporation, as help or hindrance to the generation of wealth in developing countries?
Well, in those countries, the multinational corporations very often not only pay more money than the local industry pays, but it brings in skills that don't exist and creates industries that never were there before. To that extent, I think they are a source of the transmission of international human capital. To that extent, yes.
Now, this excerpt is taken from the book, Intellectuals and Race, by Dr. Thomas Sowell. In addition to the inherent geographic advantages that Western Europe...
So we got like a passage in this book now from Intellectuals and Race. Interesting.
By Dr. Thomas Sowell. In addition to the inherent geographic advantages that Western Europe has had over Eastern Europe, for example, more navigable waterways leading to the open seas, with Western European rivers and harbors not being frozen over, as often or as long in winter as rivers and harbors in Eastern Europe, due to the warming effect of the Gulf Stream on Western Europe. Another major historic advantage growing out of geography is that Western Europe was more readily accessible to invasion by Roman conquerors. Despite the ruthless slaughters in those conquests and the subsequent brutal oppressions by the Roman overlords, among the lasting advantages which the Roman conquests brought to Western Europe were Roman letters, so that Western European languages had written versions centuries before the languages of Eastern Europe did. To the enormous advantages of literacy, as such, Western Europeans had the further advantage of a far greater accumulation of written knowledge in their languages, even after the languages of Eastern Europe began to develop written versions, but still had not yet caught up with the centuries-long accumulations of knowledge written in Western European languages. Literacy was not the only thing that moved from West to East in Europe. So did coins, printing presses,
So we're talking about just the geography of a country alone is given an advantage. Like, you know, there was a lot of the Western countries having just more access to these like open like rivers and stuff that you can access transport from other countries and stuff. I butchered how I should have articulated that, but even then, you know, the geography affects in it, and how, you know, because we were easily able to be like, you know, colonized or like invaded in a sense, like by the Romans and stuff, that allowed us to develop literacy and stuff like a lot easier like than other countries. So that's interesting how geography alone would impact something like that, which makes sense.
Thing that moved from West to East in Europe. So did coins, printing presses, castles, crossbows, paved streets, and vaccinations, among other economic and social advances. But all of this took time, sometimes centuries. Moreover, people from Western Europe, Germans, Jews and others, were often a majority of the population in Eastern European cities in earlier centuries, while Slavs remained a huge majority in the surrounding countrysides. For example, before 1312 the official records of the city of Krakow were kept in German, and the transition, at that point, was to Latin. Only decades later did Poles become a majority of the population in Krakow. The towns of medieval East-Central Europe were often cultural enclaves of foreigners, again, mostly Germans, but with many Jews as well, and, in the Balkans, Greeks and Armenians, joined in later centuries by Turks. In short, there has been for centuries, not only a disparity between the opportunities and advances in the two halves of Europe, but great disparities within Eastern Europe itself, between the indigenous peoples of the region, and the transplanted Western Europeans living in Eastern Europe, the Baltic and the Balkans. Neither genes nor discrimination are necessary to explain this situation, though some intellectuals and politicians have chosen to claim that the differences have been due to race and others have chosen to blame social injustices. Many other racial and other groups in many other parts of the world have likewise ended up with large disparities in opportunities and achievements, for reasons that range across a wide spectrum and cannot be reduced to genes or injustices. Thank you for watching this presentation to the end. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
I hear it though. Okay, I've already liked the video, but I hear it. Because, you know, I guess to say that, okay, a lot of these disparities in terms of like wealth and how people are now is solely boiled down to like race and, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like, I think that's just a false argument here. That's like I don't know, is that what you call a straw man? Like where you're... Well, either way, it's just a bit disingenuous, the situation, because I guess you're neglecting things like, you know, environmental impacts and stuff like that, and like just the geographical location of your country can impact it and stuff like that. It's a bit more nuanced, it's a bit more dynamic and complex and stuff like that. So it's like, I feel like from what Thomas Sowell was saying, I like what I'm hearing so far. It's making sense, and these are kind of points that I haven't really heard as much in terms of describing. In this sense, you know, they were talking more about poverty, but I'll be very curious to see even more so what you have to say about race. Like, you know, the impact of racism and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, guys, look, with that being said, Let me know what you guys thought of this video. Let me guys know what other videos I'm gonna check out, especially from Thomas. So I'd love to check out some more of this stuff. And look, with that being said, yeah, if you made this point, comment down a green heart for geography and the landmass. And I've been your boy JayFlex. This is what they didn't teach you about colonization. And for those of you guys who made this point, you guys have been absolutely wonderful. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.